Moving on to our next speaker, we have Dr. Leanne Melbourne. And Leanne is a lecturer in marine micropaleontology at the University of Bristol. She has an MSc in chemistry and a PhD in geology or earth science. And for her PhD, she was looking at the effect of climate change on the structure of coralline algae. And this is research that she's developed and expanded upon since her PhD. But Leanne has also worked as an events and communications manager for the Linnean Society of London, which is the world's oldest active biological society. So again, another very interdisciplinary career. Leanne was also part of a documentary, a Merle documentary, which one of our committee members, Siddhi Joshi, directed, and that's a rare seabed habitat, which was made in 2014. So we can possibly share links to that afterwards. So we're very excited to welcome Leanne. If you want to turn on your camera, and Leanne's going to do Simratan Jaina, a more informal talk. So if people want to join in and turn on their own videos and show your faces and say hello, please feel free to do that as well.
Yeah, it'd be nice to see some faces while I'm talking, but if you don't worry about it. So thank you, Jess. Yeah, so I'm Leanne, and I'm currently a lecturer at University of Bristol in marine micropaleontology. I only started, this is my first teaching role, and I only started in March, just before lockdown. I literally turned up on the Monday, and then they said, yeah, we're closing on Friday, so you're gonna have to go home. So that was a bit weird. Yeah, trying to get to grips with things under lockdown, learning how to be an academic, because it's my first academic role since my PhD, learning that side of things at the university and learning teaching. It's all been a bit weird doing that during lockdown. So my area of research, my interest is looking at marine calcifiers and looking at how environmental change affects their internal structure through time, and modeling things like their structural integrity. So modeling how internal structural changes affect the structural integrity, how the stress and strain is distributed through the model, and how this impacts on function. So how did I get into this? Well, as you heard, I have a chemistry master's degree. So I wasn't even thinking about geosciences growing up. I'm sure you can tell by my accent, I was born and raised in London, Wembley, home of football. And as Anjana said, growing up in a city, you're not really, and as a woman of colour, ethnic minorities, we're not really connected to nature in the same way. And so, yeah, didn't really think about geology or geosciences or anything like that. My mum kind of, not pressurized me, that's the wrong word, but kind of strongly instilled an idea of doing medicine. That was what I was going to do, something that had like a proper career path and you knew what you were going to go to afterwards. I can see I'm trying to nod in, yeah. So that was the idea. I was going to do medicine. I was going to be a pediatrician, and I went to an open day during my A-levels. So I did chemistry, maths, biology. Those were my A-level subjects. And then I went to Imperial College for an open day and hated it. And I remember they did these mock interviews and they asked us questions about why you want to do medicine, and I just couldn't really come up with a reason why I wanted to do medicine. And I think it hit home there and then that actually it was more my mum talking to me and my mum's idea of things that was where I was going in my head, and actually if I thought about it, medicine wasn't what I was interested in. So I had to kind of sit back. So I was 16, 17, had to sit back and reevaluate what I was going to do. I knew I wanted to go to uni. I loved sciences. And so then I just decided that out of my 3 subjects, I actually was really good at chemistry and quite enjoyed it. And I had 2 really enthusiastic chemistry teachers. And so decided, yeah, I'm going to do chemistry, and ended up going to Bristol because University of Bristol had a really good chemistry department. And what was I going to say? Yeah. And yeah, so I started to do chemistry at University of Bristol, and luckily I loved it. Loved chemistry, loved university, loved being in Bristol. It's such an amazing city and very vibrant. And it meant that I was away from home, which was nice, get away from London for a bit. And yeah, so I was studying chemistry and then kind of thinking, what am I going to do next? actually during my degree, I didn't really enjoy labs. I love the theory side of things, but didn't enjoy the labs, the practicals. And I chose to do the straight 4-year course, because you could either apply for a bachelor's or 3-year course and then do a master's afterwards. But I thought it would be easier for funding, so applying for student loans, if you could just apply for the straight 4 years up front instead of applying for 3 years and then trying to get an extra year on top of that. So that was part of my idea of doing a 4-year course instead of the 3-year course. I also chose Bristol because you could do a year in industry and the master's within 4 years, so you didn't have to take an extra year to do it. So like kind of things like that, trying to get my education done out of the way and then back into the working world. And that was my idea. I wasn't even thinking about research. So I did a year in industry, worked in a pharmaceutical company for a year, realized did not like pharmaceuticals. As you can tell from this talk, there's a lot of realizing. I think it's really important it's just as important to work out what you don't like as well as what you do like. And there's nothing wrong with doing something and being like, actually, that's not for me. At least you've tried it and now you can move on. So that's one of the things that I've really picked up, is that there's a lot of things that you kind of have to try before you realize if you do or don't like it or not. So yeah, did this pharmaceutical year in industry, and pharmaceuticals wasn't for me, because that's what I thought with a chemistry degree, that's what everyone did. You went and worked in pharmaceuticals. And then after that, I was like, oh, now what do I do? So yeah, so I was in my final year doing my master's. I'd chosen an environmental kind of master's research project. It was looking at the incorporation of organic matter into sediments. And I started to enjoy research a bit more then. And I really remember having a talk by Sir John Raven about ocean acidification. And yeah, my mind was just blown by that, and learning about the chemistry of the ocean and how its impact on organisms. And towards the end of that degree, I remember talking to my master's supervisor, and he was just like, oh, so what are you interested in doing next? And I was thinking, oh, maybe science communication, science policy, something like that. And then he went, but Leanne, you're really good at research. Have you thought about doing a PhD? And I was like, oh, is that open to me? Can I do a PhD? I did something that just didn't cross my mind. So I think from him saying that, I suddenly realized that, oh, a PhD is a possibility to me. And luckily, so we discussed what I was interested in, which was like ocean acidification and its impact on organisms. And he said that I don't really do that kind of thing in my department, but actually my colleagues in earth sciences, there's somebody in there who would be more suited to you, so maybe you should have a chat with them. So I went and had a chat in earth sciences with Daniela Schmidt, and she was like, yes, we have this project. It's looking at coralline algae, and I've actually realized I have some here in my flat with me. So this is like unattached coralline algae called Merle. There's some beautiful beds in Ireland. This one is from Falmouth, actually. And she was like, yeah, so if you want to apply for it, I think you'd be great for the role. So I applied for that PhD. It wasn't the first one to get it. It was offered to somebody else. But I stuck around, and then eventually like they turned it down and I got the PhD. And yeah, so I stayed in Bristol for another 4 years and worked on these things, these corallines. And so basically looking at how a warmer, more acidic environment, how does it affect their ability to maintain their habitats? So these will lie on the sediment and interlock together, and they create all these homes for a wide range of organisms. So they're like a nursery ground to commercially farmed scallops, and so important for the seafood industry and loads of different organisms. And so I was trying to look at how do they form weaker skeletons under future climate change. So comparing stuff collected 100 years ago to stuff collected today, and simulating using a modeling package, how different wave energies and things, how it would change the stress distribution in these structures, and ultimately are they more likely to break. So that was the PhD. During my PhD, I did a lot of outreach because I was still interested in science communication. So I did a science policy internship. I wrote blogs, I wrote an article for the Conversation, I did I did festivals and talked about my research to lots of different groups, which I think is really important. And in doing that, that actually got me my role at the Linnaean Society. So when I finished my PhD, I was like, I'm out. I'm not sure if I want to be staying in research, and I actually think I want to pursue science communication. So kind of left and applied for a few postdocs and tried to do a few fellowships, but wasn't really fully into it. And I think that was reflected in me not getting anything. But then I got the job at the Linnaean Society of London, which is a natural history society. And I think partly I got that role because of all the outreach and communication that I did during my PhD, and having that kind of access of knowing what it's like in academia as well, which was really handy. And I had really fun 2 years there. Basically organising the lecture program, so inviting speakers, running the website and social media, and promoting the collections. So some really cool collections. So Alfred Russel Wallace, who wrote the Malay Archipelago, there's a story in there about them wrestling a python from the hut, and we have the skin on display, which is pretty cool. And we have Charles Darwin's vasculum and things like that, where he used to collect his plants in. And so while I was there, like geosciences, like many things in academia, it's a certain type of demographic at the society. And so one of my main goals was to try and increase diversity within the society and put on more events that attracted a wider range of audiences. So we did diversity days looking at women in natural history. We did ethnic minorities in natural history. I wrote articles and things like that, delving into collections. We also have a problem, but that I say we like I still work there. The society also has a lack of students joining, and they're trying to incorporate more students to join the society. So along with the education team, I developed a student conference that was about learning how to effectively engage with the public about your research. So that was a competition that you could win and things, and that's now going into its 3rd year, so I'm quite excited about that. But yeah, all the time doing that, I actually realized this is great, and I do enjoy science communication, but I do miss doing my own research, and I do miss talking about my own research. And I found like I was actually quite happiest when I was able to talk about my PhD work. So luckily I had 3 really great PhD supervisors who continued to support me once I left. So one, my PhD was based between the University of Bristol and the Natural History Museum in London. And so my supervisor at the Natural History Museum in London allowed me to come in 1 day a week and do some research with her, like doing biodiversity discovery and taxonomy of corallines. And we just had a paper out about a new species of coralline algae from Tristan da Cunha, Anna, which I saw in your images. Yeah. So I've been doing that for last year, and then saw this job come up back in my old department in Bristol, and lecturing in marine paleontology. Thank you, Jess. And I was like, well, I demonstrated on that course. I know the department. I know a lot of the techniques. Why not just try it? I don't think I've just got a PhD. I haven't got any postdoctoral experience or anything, but why not? Let's just try it. And I want to go back into research. And I spoke to my supervisors back in Bristol, and they said, you probably have a good chance of getting it. So I applied, and here I am today. And I guess, yeah, I guess it's a weird one, because this talks a bit about trying different things, working out what you don't like, working out what you do like, utilizing mentors a lot. There are people out there in your corner, and actually all of my mentors don't look like me, don't have the same experience as me, but they saw something in me. So yeah, I think that's really what I wanted to say. And thanks. Yeah, and I'll take any questions.
Thanks so much, Leanne. That was fantastic. So impressed with how much you've packed into such a short career. It's really impressive. How does it feel being a lecturer so early in your career?
Oh, like Adriana with the imposter syndrome, it's pretty high right now. Yeah, no, it feels good. Like I have to keep telling myself that I'm only 29, and so like to be doing, it's not a permanent role, it's only for a year, but to be able to actually have that lectureship position for a bit, I feel I have to keep telling myself that it's really good and that I'm doing really well. But then yeah, it's still back of your mind, oh, I'm only 29, I shouldn't be doing this yet. Like I've still got quite a few more years. So it's difficult. You have to keep telling yourself every day that you are on the right track and you have to stop listening to that voice back there.
It's incredible. No matter how much you achieve, it's always there, and we all get it no matter what. No matter what. They wouldn't have hired you if you weren't capable. You're there for a reason. Yeah. I'm wondering, like, kind of in a similar vein, how did it feel transitioning from a career in chemistry into geoscience, a totally new field?
Oh yeah. Department seminars were difficult. um, to be honest, actually, it wasn't that bad because in earth sciences, when I started my PhD, there was a lot of people from different disciplines. So we had biologists, physicists, quite a few chemists actually. So in the end, like it didn't feel like I was in out of my depth because there was quite a few people who were like me in the same boat. So
I think that's one of the things that we can really push about geoscience is it's so varied and so broad.
So
yeah, exactly. And no matter your research area, you can never know everything. There's always something new to learn, and there's so much to learn. That's why we like to stick to our corners sometimes, because we know we don't know everything about everything else. That's so incredible. So I'm wondering now, as a lecturer as well, you dipped into your outreach and then you came back to research. Do you get much opportunity to do more of your outreach work now in your current role?
Actually, for the last couple of months, I've been doing quite a few talks for students. I did the STEMX a couple of weeks ago. Just through Twitter, I found another school, and so I'll be doing a talk with them later on this year. So yeah, I do. I still love doing that, and so we'll continue. And I still work with LINSOC quite a bit as well. So there's opportunities of doing outreach with them too. But yeah, I don't want to give that part up at all.
Yeah,
It's
fantastic.
such a part of it.
Yeah. That's definitely a common theme that we see with everyone tonight. Thanks so much, Leanne. Again, if anyone has more questions for Leanne, we can come back to them at the end. But we're going to move on to our final speaker.